How would you feel about a ban of how would you feel questions on the sub? Like you're sweeping your own legs out from under you. As you ban more types of questions, you narrow down the types of questions that can be asked. Guess what's likely to happen? Some other type of question becomes a predominant and annoying one. You ban that, another one pops up. You do this enough and the questions just get more and more narrow and more annoying. The primary problem with repetition in this sub is that reality can't keep up. There are only so many ways to ask interesting questions and many of the people who could come up with interesting things to ask are too busy doing other things to come on Reddit. As long as Reddit threads have a half-life of roughly 6 hours, subreddits are going to struggle greatly with staying interesting. And that's the threads that get tons of upvotes. The ones in new have a half-life of probably minutes, if not seconds, depending on content flow. Unless they catch into rising, which will give them a bit more time, but not much. The intrigue is in the answers and the discussions, for the most part. Rarely the questions themselves. But when threads die off so fast, it makes it difficult for people to sink their teeth into a meaty discussion. So you get puns or cheesy stories instead. I would love it. People used to ask questions with somewhat interesting answers. Hypothetical stupidity does not interest me, which is all this has become. Would you be slightly inconvenienced if it took years off your life and you get $1 billion? Also, how would you spend it? Who fucking cares? No one can travel through time in the way needed for these dumb questions to even happen, and no one is giving anyone $1 billion. Hell, I would be blown away to see someone get 10 grand randomly. I hate every person that posts one of these questions and I wish them a long drawn out death. This actually gets to the heart of exactly the issue with these posts in a both accurate and poetic manner. Well done, Sprog. The issue isn't how would you feel about as a phrase. The issue is that there are people out there who think they are the only ones who experience basic human emotion and thought. Ironically, they are also the ones with the least experience in the thought department. They need to have their guys. I think it's unfair that rich people have money and poor people don't. Validated, and because they don't realize that this conclusion has been reached by pretty much every single human being since the invention of currency and cannot in any manner be called polarizing or thought-provoking. Would you go back 10 years with all your current knowledge? This is a unique question that has never been asked or thought of, ever. And I'll bet not a single respondent thought about Bitcoin or Apple stock, so I'll surely be hailed as a prophet/comedic genius for pointing out that knowing the future of speculative assets could be used for financial gain. On the other hand, I'll also need to publicly signal devotion to my spouse and or child, Ren, by refusing to contemplate any hypothetical that might change the trajectory of my life that led to them. Permaban everyone who asks, how would you feel if? Would you take a large sum of money for doing a trivial task like living w/o internet for a month? What are the most legendary Reddit posts? Girls/dudes of Reddit. What does the opposite sex do that they don't know? Is creepy/hot? What if popular Reddit pandering opinion on politics here was made mandatory? And every other question like that. It'd legitimately make AskReddit a decent sub again that doesn't get bogged down by awful karma whores and bots. I'd feel great about it if we also banned all the variants of girls/guys of Reddit. What can I do/say/act/change/think to increase/decrease my odds of having sex with you masquerading under 40 different permutations? I feel like most of the sexual ones are getting more frequent and worse. Like at least half of them are probably just horny teens trying to get their fix from hearing other people's stories, which are probably fake stories of fellow teens who are getting off by writing a fake story. I'm hoping after the holiday break it gets better, or I'm going to leave this subreddit. There is a lot of this garbage. The superpower ones in particular are annoying. It's like 5-year-olds talking in the playground. I remember when you used to get genuinely fascinating threads you could get lost in for hours. The what paranormal/creepy/unexplained thing happened to you? Ones were my favorite. People complained about them coming round every week, but they always had loads of interesting and unique replies every time. Right now, I'd support the ban. There's too many questions that have an obvious answer, like how would you feel if we could treat all diseases and everyone gets $1 million in their local currency? It's always something super agreeable. Perhaps all the controversial questions, like how would you feel if cancer patients battled it out as gladiators and the losers' bodies get used for scientific research and you have to pay like way more in taxes to make it happen? Get downvoted into oblivion. Good lord, yes. That was a dark time for this sub. The phrasing was normally even worse than the example you gave, because it was often a quick story and then a question, like, my date threw a fit and pulled a knife on the waiter because her steak wasn't done enough in the center. What's the worst first date you've been on? And it sucked, because half of the thread was people responding to the question, and the other half was people asking up about the story in the title. I see what you're doing here. This is some meta shit, bro. Don't think you're gonna get away with this. I'll find where you live, go on your Wi-Fi, and you pvote your post. I don't know. It really depends on whether or not it's a dumb question. If it's a how would you feel post on something genuinely interesting, thought-provoking or morally diverse, I think it's really good. But there are a lot of crappy posts like how would you feel if you won $1 million on a Sunday? I feel like the simple change to how would you feel if you got $1 million but your dog died when you got it? Still a stupid question, but at least it adds some sort of moral dilemma and thought provocation. While we're at it, can we bang the hypothetical shit like anything that starts with would you or somehow involves getting paid? Every other fucking post. There is little value to a post of you get $1 million a day, but a midget gets to spit grapefruit juice in your eyes every time you pee. Do you do it? It's low effort and the responses are basically or yes or no. It's shit people should be talking about with their mates at a bar. I don't like the idea, but I agree it's annoying that people often ask very agreeable questions when they use how would you feel, but I wouldn't like it banned because sometimes they are interesting or a person really is interested in the answers. I think we should just blanket ban everything we don't like instead of just letting those posts sink when people naturally get tired of them, as is the natural order of things. But actually let's over moderate, that solves most things. Why exactly do you care so much about which topics are posted to an online message board, that is, Reddit? If you want to see different topics, feel free to check out one of Reddit's thousands of other subs. Please tell us about a time when a how would you feel topic posted to this sub caused you any sort of major/minor inconvenience. I suggest you start a new hobby or start any of the other side projects you've never finished, since you apparently care to invest a ton of time and energy attempting to control which topics are posted on an internet discussion site. There's a short story I'm always reminded of when questions like this come up. A mom is making her famous soup for her family one night when one of her daughters comes to her and asks, "Mom, I love your soup, but could you please leave out the carrots this time?" "Sure sweetheart," the mom says. Then her eldest son comes into the kitchen and says, "Smells great, Mom. Boy, I love your soup, but could you leave the jalapenos out of it tonight?" "Of course honey," the mom says. Then her husband comes in and asks, "Is that your famous soup, dear? I've been dreaming about that all day, but could you leave the tomatoes out of it tonight?" "Anything for you, sweetie," the mom says. Then her sister, who was joining them for dinner, walked into the kitchen to ask if she could lend a hand, but couldn't help making her own request. "Hey sis, could you leave the celery out of the soup tonight?" One by one the woman's two other sons, eldest daughter, father, mother, brother-in-law, cousin, aunt, uncle and youngest sister all came in to make requests about leaving something they didn't like out of the soup. Finally it was dinner time, and once everyone had sat down at the table, the mom began serving 14 bowls of steaming, hot water. "Mom," asked one of her sons, "what happened to the soup?" "Well, I took out everything that everyone didn't want, and this is what was left." There have been some necessary trimmings over the years, but each time we cut a little more off of Reddit I worry. Reddit is what it is because the possibilities are as unrestricted as our interests. There used to be a few rules, to try and keep things civil and organized, and you had to post in the right sub, but other than that it was the Wild West. Nowadays I find myself less interested in making comments or posts in some of my favorite subs because of how often I find myself unknowingly breaking some part of the unique rules of any of the 138,000 different active subs. Maybe you don't like how would you feel questions in this sub, but I'm guessing you see them a lot because people like asking and others like responding. As long as subs aren't being spammed with advertisers, scammers, shills, and bots, I'm pretty much okay with whatever gets posted, as long as it's related in some way to the sub. Because if we keep cutting out all the small parts here and there that we don't personally like, pretty soon there won't be anything left in the soup. Thank you for watching. If you enjoyed the video, hit like. If you would like to see more, feel free to subscribe.